Hi, I am Camille on Williams Street and welcome back. Again, this week we are doing, if you're just tuning in, we are doing a little of a special week where every single day this week we have published a lesson geared towards kids, teaching kids how to quilt and to make their very first quilt top. So today we are coming back and we have made our blocks. We have those fun 9-patch blocks that we've put together. And today we are actually going to cut them up, mix them up, and sew them back together again. So you might be wondering why we're going to cut these up. They're perfectly good blocks, and you could actually just take them just like this. This is called a 9-patch block, and you could take them like this and sew them together and have a fantastic, fun quilt. But by cutting them up and mixing them up, it just kind of gives a real fun new look, and it's a quilt that looks like it was complicated to put together but goes together really easy. So we're going to move forward with that, and it's called a disappearing 9-patch is the pattern that we're making. So what we're going to do is you just need to gather your blocks. You should have 12 of them all done, all ironed, and all ready to go. And we're going to cut them in half. If you don't have the rotary mat and you may have got charm packs earlier to sew them together, I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can cut these up so that if you don't have a rotary cutter, that's not going to stop you and you can still go ahead and make this quilt. So if you're using a ruler and a rotary cutter, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find the marks on your cutting mat. We're going to be cutting these in half, both directions. So go ahead. Now I'm just going to line it up so that the edge of my block is lined up right on that one. Your block should be about 14 inches. If you want to, you can definitely take your ruler and double check that and measure it, and you're going to see that it should be right about 14 inches. If your blocks came out a little small, as you can see this direction, it's actually a little bit small, and that's okay. You can adjust it just a little bit if we need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay that on there, and that means that my 8-inch, because if I cut 14 in half, we're going to have 7 inches. So I want each piece to be a 7-inch square. So for my 1 to my 8-inch is going to give me my 7 inches. If I was over here on the 0, I would want to use the 7-inch. And then take your ruler, and you can actually just line it up directly on the your 8-inch line. That's why I have my behind the scenes helper keeping me on track. You can line this up on the 8-inch line. Like I said, remember, if you've lined it up on the 0 line, cut on the 7. If you put it on the 1-inch line, cut on the 8, so that we make sure we have 7 inches on that side. Hold it down, and just like we cut when we were cutting out the 5-inch squares, keep your hand out of the way. Remember, this is sharp, and just slice right through the inside. And that's going to give you 2 halves. Now we're going to take our 2 halves, and like I said, because you notice mine was a little bit short, I'm going to put it on the 1, and it's actually just the red that's a little short, so I'm not going to need to really adjust too much. But if you have to, you can kind of center it between the 1 and the 15, just a little bit if you need to, so that it's still even down the center. Put it right back on the 8 again, and just line it up right along that line of the 8 on both sides, and cut that in half. Then you've got these 2 squares that are now going to match but be different colors, and we're going to put those out of the way. Take my next one, line it up between your 1 and your 15. Nice and straight. You can also even line it up along one of these other lines so you make sure that it's square. And then we're going to lay this down on my 8. And cut it in half. Now I am going to do all of these one at a time just because it's going to be easier, especially as you're beginning. So you don't have to worry about lining them up perfectly. Just line one up at a time and cut it into 4 pieces. Now I want to show you, if you don't have a rotary cutter, don't let that stop you. You can definitely still do this step. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to just grab something that I can write with, a pencil. Don't use a pen, but you can just grab a regular pencil, and I'm going to measure over. So pretending I don't have the mat either, I'm going to take a ruler. This could be a regular school ruler. I'm going to measure over from the edge, 7 inches. I'm going to put my mark there. Then I'm going to come down on the bottom end, measure over my 7 inches, and put a mark there. If you need to, if you don't have a long enough ruler, you might need to put one in the middle too. So just mark 7 inches. From there, you can line your ruler up along all those marks, draw your line, and then you can see that line, oh, let's make it a little bit darker, to very carefully cut out with your regular scissors. So this is a way, if you don't have a rotary cutter, if you went ahead and bought the charm packs because you don't have access to a rotary cutter and mat, just cut it up this way. It's going to take you a little bit longer, but just take your time. Try to be as accurate as you can with those cut, and try to get it as straight as you possibly can. And you'll still end up with all the pieces we need to mix it up and put it back together. So let me draw this line. And then we can cut that. So I'm just going to use my regular scissors. The easiest way to probably do this is to lay it on a flat surface and then just very carefully cut along that line. If you try to hold it while you do this, it's probably not going to be very straight. But if you just very slowly cut all the way across, keeping it as flat as possible, you're going to be able to cut right on that line, and it will be the size and shape that we need it to sew it back together. Then turn, and one at a time, cut it the other direction. To cut fabric, you're going to want the sharpest scissors that you have. So if your mom or grandma or aunt or dad or anybody have special fabric scissors, this is going to be the time you're going to want to borrow those. And we are done, and we have all the blocks that we need cut from that. So go ahead and take all 12 blocks and cut them up so that when we're done, you're now going to have 48 new smaller blocks that we're going to be working with. Okay, now we are to the funnest part of the process. We're going to go ahead and lay all the blocks out and see how the quilt is going to look when it all comes together. So to make this disappearing 9-patch block, we're going to take our four of the blocks that we cut, and these can be any blocks. Go ahead and just mix it up randomly. They don't need to necessarily match. Now there's 2 ways you can do this. There's going to be an easy way and a slightly less easy way. So decide which one you want to use. The easy way, you're going to put the big squares across from each other, touching in the middle, and then you're going to rotate your other 2 blocks, and you're going to put little squares touching each other in the middle. On this one, you can see right now I've got a lot of red going on here. Don't worry about that so much. We're going to go ahead and lay it out and then show you, you can mix it up, you can move things around. So don't worry if there's a lot of color touching. We'll change that as we get things all laid out. The other way that you can do this block, with this one, there's no seams to match up. You can see that none of these corners ever touch. So this is the easier way because you don't need to worry about making those seams match up to give you straight lines. So if your very first sewing project, you're super beginner, or you just don't want to worry about it, this is the easiest way to lay it out. Another way, you can actually go ahead and put it back together how it was before we cut it up. And what you're going to end up with here is these fun stripes that are going to go around throughout the whole quilt. So as you can see, if you do another one, set up, that one's matching. Let's not do that one. If you do another block on this side, you see how you get those varying stripes throughout the project. Trying to make it so they don't all match. Okay, this way. So those are the 2 different ways that you can lay out, the 2 easiest ways to lay it out. With this one though, you do have to worry about matching up these seams here and then these seams here. So just keep in mind that this one is going to take a little bit more time, probably use a few more pins, and decide how you want to lay it out. Then what you're going to do is just lay out all of your blocks. We are going to do the easy method, so we don't have to worry about matching seams. So I'm going to put 2 big ones in the center with the 2 little ones across from each other, 2 little ones in the center across from each other, and then just keep going and lay out the whole quilt. Okay, So now is where you get to be as picky or as not picky as you want. You can just lay it out and you can just sew it together, and you're gonna have a really fun, scrappy quilt top. Or you can mix things up a little bit. So I can see like down in here, I don't have really any of this print, but I have a lot of it up there. So at that point you can take and you can move things around. Say, okay, I'm gonna put this one down here. I'm gonna put this one back up here. I just have to figure out what way it goes, like this. You can also look and say, okay, well, I have 3 greens touching here and I don't want 3 greens touching there. So I'm going to take this one and put this one here, and I'm going to move this green one down here. There isn't really a rule to how it has to look. There isn't really a set. You have to have this many touching or you can't have this many touching. So this is where you can just kind of play and move it around as much as you want to until you're bored or until you're happy with how it looks. Don't let it be too crazy so that it takes you so long that you don't ever, let's see, get it done. We definitely want to make sure that we finish our quilt top. So move things around. After you've got things about where you want them, you're actually going to want, what I recommend is grabbing a cell phone. Lean it up as far as you can and just take a picture. Then look at it on your phone, and that you're going to be able to see things on that picture better than you can see them down there. I don't know why, but you just can, and it works. So it kind of gives you a final see exactly how it looks, and if there's any one block that's really standing out and doesn't seem like it should go there, or you need to move things around, you're going to see it a lot better on your cell phone than you are in person. So before you're done, snap a picture. After you have it exactly how you want it, you're going to actually snap one more picture. And what that's going to do is that's going to help you, give you a reminder, so that if your little brother or your little sister or your dog or somebody comes in and walks through this, you're going to have a record of it so that you can put it back together. So definitely make sure that when you're all done and you have it exactly how you want it, snap a picture so that you remember how it's supposed to go together. Okay, now after you have it all laid out exactly how you want and you've snapped your photo so that if things get messed up, you can remember how it goes back together, we're going to set them up in rows. So as you can see, we have 8 rows of 6 blocks. And the easiest way to do this is I'm going to take a piece of paper and I'm just going to tear it into 8 different pieces. And this is just going to help keep things really nice and organized. These don't need to be exact. They are not going to be seen anywhere. So you can just cut it up, tear them up, use a scratch paper, use a Post-it note, whatever you have handy. And then on each one, I'm just going to write the numbers 1 through 8. All right, so now to keep this organized, I'm going to take this top row, and I'm going to start with this very first block, and I'm just going to set it on top of the next one. Set it on top of the next one. Make sure that as you're doing this, you're not rotating them. We want them to stay in the same position that they are laid out. And then just go ahead and line them all up. Then I'm going to take it, and I'm going to take my number 1, and I'm going to put it in the top right-hand corner. This tells me what direction they need to be sewn together. I know that this is the top of the quilt, and I'm going to pin that one to them. Now if you have space and you can leave it out like this, you can go ahead and sew one, lay it back out, and then come get the next one. If you don't have the space to keep it laid out though, then just do the same thing to the next row, keeping everything lined up exactly how it is laid out. Bring it over, take your number 2, make sure that it's going in the top right-hand corner. If you put it down here, you might mix it up. And pin it to there. So then just go ahead and continue on down. Like so, this is, if you can leave it out, you're welcome to go ahead and just leave it out. But if you can't, this is a great way to keep things organized. So you would just take all of your papers and pin them all together. All right, so I have all of my stacks ready to go, and I've got them all numbered so that I know what order they go in when I get them sewn together. I'm going to set these aside. All we have to do is come back tomorrow and sew these blocks back together again, and then your quilt top will be completely finished. So we will see you then. Bye.